how it's actually possible to accidentally shoot down an aircraft.
Yes, I think it's a good thing that they have, as it were, admitted to the shoot down. It's very difficult to understand how they can do it. It's not the first time it's happened in history. It's happened about 28 times since the Second World War. But the reality is that civil air traffic controllers operate alongside civilian air traffic controllers, military and civil. They work together. They share the airspace. So there is always, minute by minute, there is coordination between military controllers and civil controllers. In most countries, you have a cell, a unit within an air traffic control center where you'll have a military controller sitting right next door to a civilian controller so that they can, in fact, coordinate. When an unidentified aircraft is flying, the military controller would ask his civil counterpart, is that one of your aircraft? And vice versa. So it's difficult. In fact, the director of the civil aviation department there in Tehran actually spoke about that a couple of days ago or yesterday. He said that he had military controllers sitting right next to the civil controllers, and it was impossible for this to happen. Well, it has happened, and it can only be that somebody didn't talk to somebody. When the missile battery saw something, if they got a warning on their system saying there's an aircraft approaching, they probably became very stressed, very upset, they were on high alert. They wanted to do something, and they maybe acted too quickly. But their protocol should have been that they would have checked with their civil counterparts or with the military defense officer, as we call them, to find out whether this was a civil aircraft or not. There's also an issue with the air traffic controllers in the Tehran control tower. Why did they allow this aircraft to take off and fly on a route that would take it over a known sensitive area? Because they have said they shot it down because it appeared to be flying toward one of their sensitive military locations. Now, normally, the controller would, on taking off, the aircraft would be directed away from such an installation, particularly at a time like this when there's such sensitivity. There's a lot of questions to be answered.
So many questions indeed, Desmond, and so much to get through. And one of the questions that is being asked in Tehran at the moment is, after this incident, why were flights then not grounded?
Exactly. Well, I said that yesterday, that ever since MH17, which was shot down over the Ukraine, of course, there's been a very strict risk assessment done on almost every flight that takes off, especially in areas like that. So I would have expected that the Ukrainian Airlines operations department would have been making risk assessments minute by minute as to where their aircraft should be operating, which airports they should go to and which ones they should not. So he was already in Tehran. He was about to depart to return to the Ukraine. Why was he allowed to even take off? You know, why were any other aircraft allowed to take off? There were a couple just before. There was a Qatar Airways flight shortly before him. You have to ask that question of the authorities and of the airlines themselves. They knew what was going on in terms of the US and the Iran conflict. So a risk assessment should have been made, and the pilots should have been made aware of all of these things. And the captain of the aircraft could ultimately have made a decision. I'm not prepared to fly at this moment because I think it's too dangerous. But his operations department should have had all that information as well and should have taken those sorts of decisions.